I'm talking today to Tad Deriso, who is the President and CEO of Mid-Atlantic Broadband Cooperative. Mid-Atlantic Broadband Cooperative is a publicly funded fiber network in South Virginia. Tad, how come you're running a publicly funded network in America of all places, which is the land of free enterprise?
Sure. Yeah, it was a very interesting problem that we had in rural Southern Virginia, that there was a lack of telecommunications infrastructure that was capable of providing competitive access. The costs were very high, through no fault of anyone's situation, but the private sector, the incumbent providers, just haven't invested enough money in those rural areas. So we were created as a 501c12 nonprofit cooperative, not-for-profit cooperative, to be able to deploy an open access fiber network that solves that problem. So basically the network is there to encourage and enable private sector telecom providers to come to these rural markets and serve their customers and other things that they need to do on a cost-effective basis, which levels the playing field to make rural Virginia the same as major metropolitan areas in the U.S.
So when you say open access, what you mean is you're the wholesale deliverer for all the other carriers, so you don't do any retail sales.
That is correct. The reason we are successful and the reason we have over 60 companies now doing business with us as private sector providers is we have embraced the wholesale model. We are strictly wholesale. When you get into the wholesale and then you start doing some retail and you start competing with your members, that becomes a large issue. So really we said from day one, we're going to focus on the wholesale model and be able to do that cost effectively, and then allow the private sector to do what they do best, which in a free enterprise market is to deliver costs at the most effective service, make profits and things like that. So we've enabled those private sector companies to do that.
So how big is the network and what did it cost?
Sure. The network today is about 800 miles of fiber, primarily in rural Virginia. We have about 25 nodes that kind of our points of presence that we access. The initial investment was around $50 million US to do the deployment. Today we have an additional $35 million of public funds, grant funds, that were used to deploy an additional 800 miles of fiber. So at the end of the day, we'll have close to 1,700 route miles of fiber that we own and manage in rural Virginia.
So how rural is rural Virginia?
Let's see. Rural is rural. I'm sure to answer that. Let's see.
How big are villages and how far apart are they and how far apart are houses?
Oh, sure. So in this area, it's what we call population density. So in a metropolitan area, you may have 100 homes or 200 homes per mile. In rural areas, we have maybe 5 or 6 homes per mile. So it's a much less dense area that we serve, and usually from towns or communities, about 25 to 30 miles apart, because back in the days as America was becoming, you wanted it a day's horse ride away from each other. So that's where you'll see the 20 or 30 miles between population centers.
And I understand you've connected most of the schools in your area. How has that been done?
Oh, that's probably the best part of our network. We connect all of our K through 12 elementary, secondary schools with the fiber network. What that allows us to do is to offer those schools access from our members. And again, we're not providing services directly to the schools, but what they found is when we place an open access fiber connection in those schools, allow the private sector to come in and bid on those services, schools are going from 1 or 2 megabit per second connection for thousands of dollars a month to 100 megabits of connectivity at less costs than they were paying previously. And that's been a real big driver of how we've started to improve the educational system in the region and be able to be a big partner with our communities to help that access.
And how did you manage to attract Microsoft to locate a data center in South Virginia?
Yeah, that's one of our unique strengths, is because we have the open access network. Companies like Microsoft, large data center companies, and all the cloud computing, they say, where can we put this location that we don't really care where it is, but it has to have power, it has to have lots of connectivity with fiber, and it needs to help meet our business goals. So this was a multi-year project. We worked a lot with the state of Virginia and the governor's office to help prove that this area of the state that has a lot of those facilities in place can attract those type of type of data centers. So we were able to help Microsoft with their fiber connectivity to the places they needed to get to, and really competed very aggressively with other states that didn't have quite the same network we had in rural Virginia. And Microsoft saw that as a differentiating factor and made the investment decision to come to rural Virginia.
Last question, how is this relevant for African countries?
Yeah, probably very relevant. It's the same issue of how is that access to the greater internet? In the United States, we talk a lot about broadband and, oh, how fast is the speed of broadband to my home or to my business? Well, at the end of the day, you can have 100 megabits, a gigabit to every single home. Have all that connectivity. But if you only have a small connection to the internet, it makes absolutely no difference. It doesn't help with the situation. So what we've really focused on is that open access backbone pipe that connects the internet gateways, like we have in Virginia, to major data center locations, bring that connectivity down to the region, and then allow our rural communities to be able to access that. Same situation as Africa. You have to get from the international gateways into your rural markets, but have an open access network that publicly funded, so everyone has the same opportunity to use that at the same price points, and that's really, really important to make that work.
Tad, thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.